Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is my review of the Star Wars The Black Series Djarin and Child 2-pack. Now this is of course a Target exclusive in the US. I'm not entirely sure about Canada and other countries, but in the US it is a Target exclusive. It of course is in that nice orange Mandalorian packaging, and it does have this beautiful image of Din Djarin and the child on the side there. It just looks really nice. I love the shot of him holding there. It just looks great. Flipping it over to the back, we do have the exact same image. We do have the bio, which you can pause and read it if you would like. It is actually number 5 in the Mandalorian line. Not a whole lot going on here. It of course does have the window on the top, legals on the bottom, so let's go and get this guy open and see what he looks like. So we have the Mandalorian out of the box, and I do have to say this guy comes with a ton of accessories, which we will go over all of them later in the video of course, but I do have to say this guy is pretty cool. Definitely one of the better exclusive packs that we've seen recently, especially for a deluxe figure. And I'm not saying I approve of exclusives, but I do have to say this is a pretty cool set, and it would have been amazing if it was a wide release. And unfortunately, I did miss out on the original pre-order, but I did manage to pick up the Target restock recently, so super happy about that. And also thanks to David for sending this to me. It just means a lot, and yeah, definitely would not be doing this video without you. So shout out to David. And yeah, let's go and take this guy off the spinning stand and take a close look at the Mandalorian. So taking a close look at Din Djarin here, he has a ton of sculpted details which just looks amazing. He does of course have the mud horn on his shoulder pad there. He does have his gauntlets as well with the whistling birds molded into that gauntlet. Just looks really cool. Do wish they would have added maybe a little blue paint on the end there to show like the whistling birds are active, but you know, not a big deal. We do also have the two little like thigh pieces there of Beskar, which also looks just amazing. From the both of the legs are the exact same mold as the previous Mandalorian. Yeah, honestly, this does look really cool though. I do have to say I love the Beskar here. Flipping it around to the back, we do have the hard cape, which I just don't like at all. I really wish, since this is a deluxe figure, they would have tried to upgrade to like a soft cape or a cloth cape, but it just doesn't look good, especially with the jetpack, which we will get into just a minute, but yeah, it just doesn't work. Flipping it around, we actually do see two little peg holes here and the strap that goes around, so those are for the jetpack of course, and then there's also this little hole here if you do want to grab his blaster. It will peg through both of the strap and the hole in the back there, and it will fit into the thing nicely. I believe I just moved the strap out of the way, but it will go through if you do it right. It's just hard to do through the camera. And you know, it looks alright with the cape around the back, so you know, it doesn't look that weird normally. But my biggest problem is doing that. It scratches the paint on the blaster a ton. And yeah, it definitely scratches the paint if you do it a ton, and it is what it is because of course you got to get on his back somehow, but it would have been nice to do it in some other way. And speaking of the jetpack, as you can probably tell, this cape gets in the way, so you're gonna have to move it out of the way and put on the jetpack here. And like I said, it doesn't really go back at all. Obviously, if you have him flying in some kind of flying pose, it doesn't look awful because it's like the cape is flying in the wind. But you know, if you just have him standing, you can't have the cape on, which is fine. You can always take off the cape if I can get it off here. You know, it's not terribly hard to take off, but it's just not accurate because in the actual TV show, he never had to take off the cape. It would just be over to the side, kind of like the Boba Fett cape. So that is a little disappointing to see. I wish they would have found some way to do like an extra cape to put on the side, or a soft goods cape so it's not a problem at all. But yeah, you will have to take it off to put on the jetpack. Anyway, next up is going to be the Din Djarin head, and I do have to say I think it turned out pretty well. I know there are some people that don't like it, but before we do get into that, I just want to show the problem with this helmet, and that is it's too small for the head. As you can definitely see there, the chin is sticking out of the bottom, and it's not easy to hide. I've pushed this pretty much all the way down, and the head is still sticking through, and I can't push it up any at all. So yeah, that chin is there to stay, which is very unfortunate if this is your only Mandalorian figure, because it definitely makes it hard to display him with the helmet on. But we can pop that off. It is very tight, but it is there, and honestly, I'm not too upset with how this Din Djarin head came out. I think it looks very accurate to the actor Pedro Pascal. My only problem is really the hair. It looks a little too like flat compared to how it actually was in the show. But honestly, I'm not too upset with that because, having your head in a helmet for 20 years constantly, I think that would definitely do that to your hair. So I mean, I'm not too like upset with it, but as you can kind of see towards the top there, there is like a gap in between the head and the hair, which like right there. There's like a gap, and you can definitely see it on my figure. I know that's not for all of them, but for mine it is definitely noticeable. But honestly, I do think the actual face sculpt itself turned out pretty well. And I guess if you were wondering, like the glowing helmet from the Deluxe armor set will fit on this Mandalorian. The exact same. I mean, it's the exact same helmet. So this one actually does look like it hides the chin just a smidge better, but honestly, not really. It's about the same. It is the exact same mold, and this one's actually translucent, so you can kind of see the hair through the back of the helmet. But honestly, it's pretty cool. And yeah, it does fit if you guys were wondering. So moving on to Grogu and the pram. This thing does look really cool. It does have a ton of detail as well. This might be a thing, but I never really noticed the whole gold stripe going down the front of this thing. This might actually be in the show, but I don't remember it at all. So this is based off Season 1, because Season 2 has some more like reddish paint to it. But I think the sculpt is amazing. It does have this little detachable stand, which is great. So, if it didn't have the stand, it'd just be on the ground and will look so stupid. So I'm glad they included the stand. And the top actually does come off of this. It just pops off like this. And there's a ton of sculpted detail in the actual pram there, which is definitely hard to see because of the lighting. But I'll make sure you guys can see it. I'll lift this up just a smidge. There we go. Yeah, you can see all of the detail in there. Just looks incredible. And of course, Grogu does fit into the pram pretty well. It is a little bit of a tighter fit, and he will stand up just fine. He can lay down, but it's very awkward because of that like force hand right there, which is actually stuck out, which is a brand new mold compared to the last Grogu, but you can fit him in. It just looks really weird. And of course, it can close on top of him just fine. But yeah, it definitely looks weird with that other hand there. It does not fit in perfectly. So we will compare the older Grogu with the newer one here. But yeah, I don't know. This I'm not a big fan of the like posing hand Grogu. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is the old mold for Grogu, and this is a brand new one just for this set. And if you haven't noticed, his arms are not movable. There is no joints in his arms, where this one can move his arms. As you can see, they can go out. It can also do that. You see the problem with his hands fall off easily, but he does have the arm movement. Obviously, it's not going to get the exact same angle as that one, but honestly, I think it's pretty close. But this has like zero articulation compared to this one. He has the arms, the hands, the head, and both the feet, where this guy only has the head and the hands. The feet are actually just molded into it. And yeah, it's a little disappointing to see. It is just a smidge shorter, that one, but not by much. One thing you can definitely tell, though, is the paint apps on this one are a lot better. This is the original release. They did do a second release of this one with the painted like scarf thing, but I don't have that one. I just have the original release. This one does have the painted scarf, and it looks pretty good. Another thing you can definitely tell the difference is the head. This has no paint really on the hair for the head, where this one does, which is pretty cool. I do like that extra detail. One detail that they added that I don't really like is the white for the eyes. That one has the white for the eyes, where this one actually doesn't, and I think this one looks better with no white, where this one I think just doesn't look as good. I think it looks a little creepier than this one. I don't know. I think the The solid black eyes just look a smidge better. And this is the original release of Grogu, and as you can tell, he fits into the pram a lot better, and it just looks more clean. I wish they would have included some kind of soft goods blanket for Grogu here, but you know, it's not the end of the world. It looks alright. And this set actually does come with some extra accessories. It does come with, of course, the 2 standard blasters that we've seen before, but he also comes with 5 pieces of Beskar and the tracking fob. Unfortunately, the tracking fob is blank on the other side. I wish they would have continued that black paint onto the other side, but I do like what they did with that side. It looks pretty good. The pieces of Beskar are actually surprisingly sculpted well with that little Imperial insignia on it. It's hard to tell because some of them are flipped the opposite way where you can't see it, but you can see some of them up close, and I do really like it. I think the Beskar turned out great. It is an interesting accessory to come with this, but honestly I love it, and I think the accessory goes way better with some other figures in the Mandalorian line than Mando himself, which we will show in just a second. So unfortunately, the jetpack doesn't come with any blast effects or anything, but we can use some other ones that we do have. So we do actually have the Iron Man blast effects. Mine are unfortunately blue and not yellow or orange or red, but you know, they still work, and they fit into the little peg holes at the bottom, which did turn out pretty well. Like I said, blue is not the best color, but this is just to show that the Iron Man ones do work. And if you don't have any Iron Man ones, but you do have the Deluxe Boba Fett, these ones are a little bit like harder to push in because they're a tighter fit, but they will fit if you push them in. And these are my personal favorite ways to display this, which it just looks incredible. I love that blast effect with that Boba Fett, you know, thrust, I guess you could call it, thrust effect. It doesn't fit in perfectly, but it looks good enough. You're not going to tell on shelf, and it's definitely the way I would prefer to display it. It just looks incredible. And the first one is actually Grief Karga, as in The Mandalorian you do know that piece of Beskar he had in his jacket saved his life, and you know, I think it's just a perfect accessory to go with him, and I wish they would have included it with Grief Karga. But unfortunately they didn't, and I don't know, I think it just looks really good with him holding it. It goes great with the figure. So yeah, I definitely have to go with the Beskar. It goes great with Grief Karga. But there's still one more figure I'd like to give it to. And that is actually the Armorer, as it fits perfectly into the tongs. Yeah, it just looks great. Definitely one of the accessories I'm going to have to keep in her tongs there, because it just looks incredible. And yeah, I'm just really surprised they've managed to get it to fit that perfectly. So yeah, those are, I think, the more reasonable characters to give the Beskar to than Mando himself. One accessory I do really wish they included with this, though, was the ice cream maker. And if you don't know what I'm referring to with that, that is actually the, you know, white container that Mando gets all the Beskar in. You know, it comes with 5 pieces of Beskar, but there's nothing really to do with 5 pieces. It looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I would have loved that little ice cream maker to come with it. And if you don't know what I'm even referring to with Ice Cream Maker, it's a throwback to Empire Strikes Back with this character right here running with an ice cream maker. And, you know, I'm so glad that they decided to include that in The Mandalorian, but I really wish they would have given us this as an accessory, or they will in the future, hopefully. But, you know, to get 5 pieces of Beskar and nowhere to store it, it just kind of sucks. But that would have been a great accessory and easy. It's an easy, like, 3D print custom, I guess, if you want to do that. But definitely one I wish they would have included. So now moving into comparisons, first up is of course number 94 Mandalorian, one of my personal favorite figures of all time, and yet they do look great together. I think I'll probably end up displaying the child with this Mandalorian just because you kind of see him with the pram a little bit more with him, I guess. I don't know. But I do really like the comparison here. It's a great evolution of armor, and it just looks great. Next up is the Credit Collection Cara Dune. Unfortunately, I don't have the original Cara Dune, but this will do, because that one's a very expensive figure on the aftermarket. And honestly, again, just looks great. I love the whole Mandalorian crew, and she fits in perfectly with it. Next up, like I said before, is actually Grief Karga, and like I said, when you get all of these Mandalorian figures together, it just looks incredible, and yeah, Grief Karga is no exception. Next up is Quill, and he's just a smidge taller than the pram, and yeah, I think he might be a little taller than he should be in universe, but it still looks great with both Grogu and Din Djarin. We also have the Deluxe Armor, which is another great figure and I highly recommend. But yeah, they also look really good together. We don't really see them a whole lot together whenever he's in his Beskar, except for that finale episode. But they still look great together, and I just love having those extra Mandalorians on the shelf. Moving on to a season 2 figure, we actually have Bo-Katan, which is another great figure I'd highly recommend. I do want to pick up Casca Reeves in the future once I can actually secure her and find her in stores. But until then, Bo-Katan will do, and she's still a great figure as well. Moving on to some bad guys, we actually now have Mando next to Grief. I'm sorry, I almost called him Grief Karga. Moff Gideon, and yeah, honestly looks really good too. I love Moff Gideon, and I love the Darksaber with him. And speaking of which, we do have to do another shot. And that's actually Din Djarin holding the Darksaber, which just looks incredible. I do wish they would have added a little bit more white to the Darksaber to add that like glowing effect to it. But it still looks great, and Din Djarin holding it is no exception. I cannot wait for Mando Season 3. And then last for comparisons, we do have the standard Mandalorian Stormtrooper, which is another great figure like I've been saying this entire video. I'd highly suggest him if you can pick him up, my new favorite Stormtrooper mold. But yeah, this guy is also incredible and looks really good next to Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian. So there we go. That is my review of the Star Wars The Black Series Mandalorian Din Djarin and Child 2-pack. Honestly, it's just amazing. I love this set so much, and I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. There's not a whole lot that's terribly wrong with this. I would have preferred the soft goods cape, of course, but we haven't got a soft goods cape with any other Mandalorian, so I'm not terribly upset about that. And, there is the problem with the helmet, but I think it's noticeable enough to where you can still hide it, which doesn't make sense. But, I think it's a minor flaw in this, and I still think it deserves a 5 out of 5 with how awesome these accessories are, and I think that's the main reason you're really buying this. You of course get the child and the pram, which is incredible in itself. Like, those are just amazing. We of course do get the removable helmet and the Din Djarin face mold, which is also incredible. I love that, and I know there's people that don't, and I'm sorry if you don't, but I personally love it, and I think it looks like Pedro Pascal quite a bit. And then, of course, we do have the pieces of Beskar and the tracking fob, which are awesome just in themselves as well. And I wish those would have came in some of those other figures. But since they didn't, this is a great way to get them. Like, a piece of Beskar should have came with Moff Gideon. The tracking fob should have came with the number 94 Mandalorian. But since they didn't, this is a great way to get it, and it looks incredible. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5, and thanks so much to David for sending this over. I do really, really appreciate it, and I highly recommend this figure to any Mandalorian fans, Black Series fans, or fans looking for a pretty awesome figure with amazing accessories.